The Maryland congressman who represents Kilmar Abrego Garcia is telling the Salvadoran government to, quote, cut the crap. Glenn Ivey says he was denied a visit with the mistakenly deported Maryland man during a trip to El Salvador this weekend, despite formal requests to the country's ambassador. Abrego Garcia has been in prison in El Salvador for more than 2 months, despite a Supreme Court order demanding the Trump administration facilitate his return to the United States. Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Glenn Ivey of Maryland.
You did a press conference, or a video, if you will, with Kilmar Abrego Garcia's lawyer yesterday. We want to play that for folks, a snippet of it.
Okay.
I came all the way down from the United States after we'd contacted their ambassador, after we'd made formal requests to our ambassador to the El Salvadoran government. And we came here to visit him today. And now they're telling us we got to go all the way back to San Salvador to get a permit. That's ridiculous. We ought to have a chance to come in and visit. They knew we were coming. They knew why we were coming. And they know we have the right to do this.
I find it interesting that they were able to stage a photo op, courtesy of the El Salvadorian government, for Senator Van Hollen when he went down after much pushback because the attention was so high and it was at the forefront of the news. And this time, oh, you can't see him, you need a permit. It seems as though the El Salvadorian government is playing games.
Well, they're definitely playing games. Chris had a bit of an advantage because in the Senate, he got Kodell's support. We can't get that in the House because the House Republicans won't do any kind of bipartisan thing along those lines. But, at the end of the day, what's the harm? The prison, as far as I could tell, looked fine from the inside. I just had to peek through a crack in there to see all that I could see. But they knew we were coming. They knew we had a right to talk to the guy. Really, all I was coming to do was bring a message from his wife and from his lawyers, who he's never had a chance to meet. But the focus really needs to be on the Trump administration, because at the end of the day, Bukele and the government in El Salvador, if Trump got on the phone and said, okay, send him back, he'd be here in a matter of hours. So keeping the Trump administration in the spotlight and making sure we keep pressing them to comply with the Supreme Court order and the other judicial orders, not just in Kilmar's case, but in others, that's what we need to focus on.
I'm curious, could you explain or maybe express how is this different? Because I've been thinking about this case in particular, but some of the others that are very similarly situated. How is this different from when Putin grabs a journalist or some, rogue group in the Middle East grabs an American, and we're sitting here fighting to try to get them back? Our own government did this. Our own government snatched him up and put him in harm's way, and now refuses to do what it must do and should do to get him back home. Is there any difference in your view as a member of Congress when, you're sitting here and you're getting intel and information on individuals around the globe who've been taken by, taken hostage by groups and organizations, and all this energy to try to get them back? I find we're doing the exact same thing here in the U.S. now.
Yeah, we
with our own government. We're petitioning our government to stop seizing people and grabbing them off the streets and putting them in foreign prisons.
Yeah.
This is the part that's killing me.
And don't forget the Venezuelans. So you had, of the 250 that were seized, 50, and this is according to the Cato Institute, had no charges against them here in the United States, in El Salvador, or in Venezuela, and they were here in the United States legally. Their paperwork was in order. Yet they still picked them up, they still deported them, and they still aren't bringing them back, even though a court's pressing them to do that. So that's about, and they're in a jail indefinitely, having committed no crime or any kind of offense anywhere. They might not ever get out of there, depending on how this plays out.
I just don't understand how the U.S. government and this president justifies that. How you look Americans in the eye and say, we put them in a prison, they're never coming back home. And they say it with such ugly smugness. They say it with such disdain for the humanity of the individual. Oh, yeah, if we've just shipped them off. And then you got these people applauding it and saying it's okay to do that until they come for you.
Yeah.
You
I think
cannot
that's right.
justify it. And Congressman, just on that point, you represent not only Kilmar Abrego Garcia, you represent his wife, who's a U.S. citizen. You represent his children, who are U.S. citizens. I know you said you had a message from the wife to her husband. I'm curious how that family is doing and how they feel about the fact that this has been done by their own government.
Well, it's tough. I mean, the little kids are too young to know all of the nuances, but they know they're getting harassed, and they know that mom's getting threatened. They know that, they have trouble going to school, and all. They have to take a level of precautions that no civilian should have to take. I'll say it that way. And then the conversation with the lawyer, just basic, does he even know you? No, he doesn't know I represent him. He doesn't know he has lawyers. He doesn't know anything about his legal rights. He doesn't know anything about the status of his case. That's ridiculous, He's in another country, yes, but he's only there because the United States sent him there, and apparently there's a contractual agreement between the United States and El Salvador. So either whether it's based on the contract or just his basic rights as a person who was deported from here, he should have the right to have counsel and the rule of law apply.
There is reporting today, and I think NBC News is working to independently confirm, that Tom Homan made money from immigrant detention facility contractors, private contractors. Like he was being paid. He earned consulting fees from immigrant detention firms. And I coupled that with this reporting from the Bulwark that Democratic lawmakers are now planning to really put a spotlight on these immigration detention facilities, particularly the private ones in their states, as early as this upcoming week. The idea, according to folks that talk to the Bulwark, is to put a spotlight on the administration's manipulation of the justice system, attacks on institutions, and targeting of political dissent. I believe that it matters that these institutions are private institutions, because that means the snatch and grab that Michael was just discussing, the disappearing of people facilitated by the United States government on American soil, people who are, by all respects, innocent, because the way you become a criminal is you commit a crime and then you go through the judicial system, and these people aren't going through it. Right. It is being facilitated by the government, and people are profiting off of it, and at least one of those individuals is currently the architect of what is going on, and he sits in a made-up position in the White House.
Yeah, and it's clear conflict of interest sort of scenario, too. We just brought this up last week. This guy, Justin Sun, I think his name is, he had fraud charges before the SEC. He gives $30 million and then $45 million to the Trump family through these meme coin contributions. All of a sudden, his charges get paused. And then he's the top guy. He won remember that dinner they had last week? He was the top bidder for that. And he sent out a tweet bragging about it. So that's what the Trump administration's about. They do that stuff. They do the $400 million jet. They're doing these kinds of things, and they're not even apologizing about it. They're proud of it.
Just a quick, as you were talking about Abrego Garcia case and the conversations with his lawyers and things like that, you've been there now twice. And do you, as the member of the United States House of Representatives who represents Mr. Abrego Garcia, is there any standing or position you can take to bring a legal action on his behalf against this administration? Has that conversation emerged in any way? You, as a former prosecutor, you know the ins and outs of that. But I'm just sitting here thinking, in your role, having now given voice to this, and leveling this up and keeping it out in front of people. On the other side of it, do you have the ability, as the member representing the individual from your state, from your congressional district, some standing to bring an action, to assist in an action?
Well, I mean, standing for members of Congress is pretty rare. Right. So I think we have 7 cases of the 200 plus that have been filed where Congress is able to file as a party, someone with standing to sue. However, we still do have the right, actually the obligation. We've got congressional oversight obligation. We've got the power of the purse. They're taking American dollars and spending them to house people who haven't been convicted of anything in one of the worst prisons in the world. We have the right to be able to go down there, not only to check on the people because we represent them, but also to make sure that the conditions are right and the money's being spent appropriately. And if we think it's not, we've got the power of the purse, we should try and cut the money off. Need Republican help to do that, and we know it ain't coming anytime soon.
But for certain members who've gotten now arrested.
Yes. LaMonica McIver out of New Jersey is being charged because essentially these trumped up charges, I would argue, because she was executing her duty for oversight. This is just, I guess lastly, this matters because it's not just about Abrego Garcia. It is about everyone who can be snatched. It's about the people who have been taken. It is about the people who potentially will be taken. I think this is a test case.
Yeah, remember when he talked, actually he and Bukele were joking about it in the Oval Office. He said, hey, build 5 more of these. We've got some homegrown people that I want to send down there. I'm afraid to ask who he's talking about. And then remember, just last week, I think he sent people, it was South Sudan, I believe it was, and he's taking a look. Remember, he's trying to reopen Alcatraz. This guy, convert Guantanamo. This is where his brain is. We've got to make sure we stand in the way of that, support the judiciary, and compel him
take the power back.
That's right.
Congressman Glenn Ivey, thank you so much for being with us. And at the top of the hour, catch All In with Chris Hayes. Tonight, Senator Chris Murphy joins the show. That is coming up 8 p.m. Eastern right here on MSNBC.